Out of options, we called for the one thing they feared most: a human. Part 1. The Impossible Problem. The great assembly chamber of Nexus Station had never felt so heavy with despair. 7 different species sat around the massive circular table, their forms as diverse as the worlds they represented. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, built at the exact gravitational center between 7 star systems, serving as neutral ground for the Galactic Cooperative Council. Ambassador Thylex of the Vorthek Collective shifted nervously, his crystalline body refracting the soft blue light of the chamber into rainbow patterns across the walls. His species had evolved from living minerals, their thoughts as precise and structured as their diamond-like forms. For 3 standard years, he had led the scientific response to what they called the Void Plague, and for 3 years, every logical solution had failed catastrophically. Seated across from him, Commander Zeleth of the Kranix Empire flexed his 4 muscular arms in frustration. His reptilian features, scarred from countless honorable battles, showed the strain of fighting an enemy that could not be challenged to single combat. The Kranix had conquered half their galaxy through strength and tactical brilliance, but their weapons were useless against this new threat. Dr. Phineas of the Alluran Republic tapped his elongated fingers against his data pad, his large black eyes reflecting the holographic displays that surrounded them. His people were scholars and researchers, having cataloged every known phenomenon in their corner of the universe. Yet this plague defied every scientific principle they understood. The other 4 species represented at the table shared similar expressions of defeat. The insectoid Zephyr Hive, the gaseous Nebular Collective, the plant-like Verdant Assembly, and the energy beings known as the Luminar Conquered had all contributed their best minds and resources to solving this crisis. Nothing had worked. In the mirror center of the chamber, a massive holographic display showed the current state of the affected regions. What had started as a small anomaly in the outer rim had grown into something that consumed entire solar systems. The Void Plague appeared as expanding bubbles of absolute nothingness, areas where matter, energy, and even space itself seemed to cease existing. Thylex stood slowly, his crystalline form chiming softly as he moved. Honored colleagues, I must present the latest data from Sector 7. His voice carried the harmonic resonance typical of his species, but today it sounded flat and defeated. The Kythera system is gone. All 9 planets, their moons, and the star itself have been consumed. The expansion rate has accelerated by 12%. Commander Zeleth slammed one of his massive fists on the table, causing several smaller delegates to jump in alarm. Impossible. The Kythera system housed 40 billion souls. How can an entire star system simply vanish? Dr. Phineas pulled up detailed scans on his personal display. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. When the Void Plague reaches a new system, matter doesn't explode or burn, it simply stops existing. Our most advanced sensors detect nothing where thriving worlds once orbited. The Zephyr representative, a creature resembling a praying mantis the size of a small vehicle, clicked her mandibles in distress. Our hive minds have calculated over 47,000 possible solutions. Every simulation ends in failure. We have tried gravitational weapons, dimensional bombs, even sacrificing entire fleets to study the phenomenon from within. Nothing slows its advance. The chamber fell into silence. 3 years of the greatest minds in the galaxy working together, and they were no closer to a solution than when the crisis began. Worse, the Void Plague was accelerating. Current projections showed it would reach the core worlds of the cooperative within 18 months. That's when Ambassador Thylex spoke the words that no one wanted to hear. There is one option we have not considered. His crystalline form seemed to dim as he prepared to voice the unthinkable. The humans. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Commander Zeleth rose to his full 8-foot height, his scales shifting to an angry crimson. Absolutely not. Have you forgotten why we quarantined that species? They are unpredictable, violent, and completely without honor. Dr. Phineas nodded vigorously, his large eyes wide with alarm. The psychological profiles are clear. Humans exhibit patterns of behavior that border on insanity. They wage war against their own species over resources they possess in abundance. They create weapons capable of destroying their homeworld, then build more of them for deterrence. The nebular collectives, representative, a swirling cloud of sentient gas contained within a transparent chamber, pulsed an angry orange. During the trade wars, humans convinced 3 separate factions to attack a 4th enemy that they themselves had created using false intelligence. When the truth emerged, somehow the humans had gained control of 2 entire trade routes and a strategic mining colony. Thylex allowed the objections to continue for several minutes before raising one crystalline hand for silence. I am aware of all these concerns. The quarantine of Sol system was implemented for good reason. Humans do not follow predictable patterns of logic, honor, or scholarly pursuit. They embrace chaos in ways that terrify civilized species. He paused, letting his words sink in before continuing. But perhaps that is exactly what we need. For 3 years we have approached this crisis with logic, honor, and scientific method. We have failed. The Void Plague continues to expand because it was designed to counter everything we are. Commander Zaleth's scales slowly shifted back to their normal green hue as he considered this. You believe the plague is artificial? I have suspected this for months, Thylex admitted. The expansion patterns are too precise, too purposeful. This is not a natural phenomenon. Someone or something created the Void Plague, and they designed it to counter every strength our civilizations possess. Dr. Phineas was frantically pulling up data on his display. If you're correct, then our logical approaches have failed because logic itself is being used against us. Our honor-based military tactics fail because the enemy has no concept of honor. Our scientific methods fail because the plague operates outside known physical laws. The chamber buzzed with translations as each species processed this revelation. If the Void Plague was indeed artificial, created by an intelligence that understood how civilized species thought and operated, then conventional responses would always fail. Thylex continued, his voice growing stronger. Humans do not think like us. They do not follow our patterns. They are the only species we have encountered that consistently acts in ways we cannot predict or understand. If the plague was designed to counter civilized behavior, then perhaps we need someone who is not civilized. The debate that followed was unlike anything in cooperative history. Species that had worked together for centuries found themselves fundamentally divided. Some argued that releasing humans into the galaxy again would be trading one catastrophe for another. Others pointed out that they were already facing extinction. What did they have to lose? Hours passed. The holographic display continued to show the relentless advance of the Void Plague, consuming everything in its path. Finally, when exhaustion had worn down the most vocal opponents, a vote was called. By the narrowest possible margin, the decision was made. They would break the 50-year quarantine of Sol system and request help from the one species that had been deemed too dangerous for galactic civilization. They would call the humans. 2 days later, Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Corps received the most unexpected communication of her career. The sleek alien vessel that appeared at the edge of Sol system broadcast ancient diplomatic codes that hadn't been used since humanity's exile began. Sarah was aboard the Defense Station Vigilance when the alert came through. At 35, she had spent her entire career defending a system that no one was supposed to visit. She had brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, intelligent dark eyes, and the kind of calm demeanor that came from years of expecting the unexpected. "Captain," called Lieutenant Rodriguez from the communication station, "we're receiving a priority diplomatic message. The codes are valid, but they're old, maybe 50 years old." Sarah moved to the main display, studying the alien vessel. It was beautiful in the way that all cooperative technology was beautiful. Flowing lines, perfect proportions, and a soft glow that suggested advanced energy systems. Human ships, by comparison, looked like flying toolboxes. "Put them through," she ordered. The holographic projector activated, and suddenly the command center was filled with the presence of Ambassador Thylex. His crystalline form towered over the humans, refracting light in ways that made him seem almost divine. "Greetings, Captain Chen of Earth," Thylex began, his harmonic voice filling the chamber. "I am Ambassador Thylex of the Vorthak Collective, speaking for the Galactic Cooperative Council. We come seeking your assistance in a matter of galactic survival." Sarah crossed her arms, her expression neutral, but her mind racing. The same cooperative that branded humanity as too dangerous for civilized space? The one that locked us in our own system like criminals? Thylex's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. "The irony of our situation is not lost on us, Captain. We come to you precisely because of the qualities that led to that quarantine. We face an enemy that our civilized approaches cannot defeat." The holographic display shifted, showing the expanding zones of nothingness that marked the Void Plague's advance. Sarah studied the tactical data with growing interest. The expansion patterns were precise, almost mathematical in their progression. "What makes you think we can help?" she asked, though she was already forming theories about what she was seeing. "Because," Thylex replied, "humans are the only species we know that fights without predictable patterns. You embrace solutions that we would never consider. You succeed through methods that terrify us." Sarah looked around at her crew, seeing the mixture of curiosity and concern in their eyes. Humanity had been isolated for 50 years, but they had never stopped being explorers, problem solvers, and, when necessary, warriors. "I'll need a full data package," she said finally. "Everything you know about this plague, every solution you've tried, and complete tactical assessments of the affected regions." Thylex's crystalline form brightened noticeably. "Does this mean you will help us?" Sarah Chen smiled, and there was something in that expression that would have made the Cooperative Council members very nervous if they had seen it. It was the smile of someone who had just been presented with an impossible problem and was already thinking of ways to solve it. "Ambassador," she said, "you came looking for someone who doesn't think like you do. Well, you found us. Let's go save your galaxy." The human solution. 3 days later, Captain Sarah Chen stood in the main laboratory aboard the cooperative research vessel Harmony, surrounded by the greatest scientific minds in the galaxy. The ship itself was a masterpiece of collaborative engineering, with sections designed to accommodate the environmental needs of 7 different species. The lab where they had gathered was kept at neutral atmosphere and temperature, allowing all species to work together comfortably. Dr. Phineas gestured toward the massive holographic display that dominated the center of the room. "Captain Chen, we have compiled every piece of data we possess regarding the Void Plague. Our best theories suggest it operates by somehow reversing the fundamental forces that hold matter together." Sarah walked slowly around the display, studying the 3-dimensional representation of the plague's advance. Her human eyes saw patterns that the others had missed, connections that their logical minds had dismissed as irrelevant. While the aliens focused on the scientific impossibility of matter simply ceasing to exist, Sarah was looking at the bigger picture. Commander Zeleth stood nearby, his reptilian features showing barely contained frustration. "We have thrown everything at this plague, human. Our most powerful weapons, our most advanced technologies, even suicide missions where brave volunteers flew directly into the affected zones to gather data. Nothing works. That's because you're fighting the symptoms, not the disease," Sarah said quietly. Her attention still focused on the display. She manipulated the controls, zooming in on the earliest recorded instances of the plague. "Look at these initial manifestation points. They're not random." Thylex moved closer, his crystalline form chiming softly. "What do you see that we have missed?" Sarah highlighted several points on the display, drawing connecting lines between them. The first outbreaks didn't happen in empty space or around natural phenomena. They all occurred near abandoned infrastructure. Old mining stations, derelict research facilities, failed terraforming projects. Dr. Phineas pulled up his own data pad cross-referencing Sarah's observations. "You are correct, but we dismiss this as coincidental. These abandoned sites are scattered throughout the affected regions. There is no logical connection." "There's your problem right there," Sarah said with a slight smile. "You're looking for logical connections. But what if the connection isn't Logical? What if it's functional? She manipulated the display again, this time showing the energy signatures associated with each outbreak point. Your people are brilliant at analyzing what something is, but you're not asking why it's there. Every one of these outbreak points shares one common feature. They all contain residual terraforming technology. The revelation sent a ripple of excitement through the assembled scientists. Terraforming technology was ancient, dating back to the early days of galactic expansion when species were still learning to modify worlds for habitation. Most of it had been abandoned when safer, more efficient methods were developed. Commander Zeleth's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue-green. Are you suggesting the plague originates from old terraforming equipment? Not exactly, Sarah replied, her mind working through the implications. I think someone is using the terraforming network as a delivery system. These old installations are connected by subspace communication arrays, designed to coordinate planetary modifications across multiple worlds simultaneously. Dr. Phineas was frantically updating his calculations. Remarkable! If you are correct, then the plague is not expanding randomly. It is being directed through the abandoned terraforming network. Thylex's crystalline form grew brighter as he processed this information. But who would possess the knowledge and capability to weaponize ancient terraforming technology on such a scale? Sarah turned to face the assembled aliens, her expression grim. That's the wrong question. The right question is, who would benefit from the complete destruction of galactic civilization? The implications of her words hit the room like a physical blow. If the Void Plague was indeed artificial, created by some intelligence that wanted to destroy all existing civilizations, then they were facing an enemy far more dangerous than a natural phenomenon. The terraforming network was designed to reshape entire worlds, Sarah continued. But if you reverse the process, if you use it to unmake matter instead of organizing it, you could theoretically create expanding zones of nothingness. The plague isn't consuming matter. It's reverting it to a pre-organized state. Commander Zeleth stepped forward, his warrior instincts fully engaged. If you are correct, then we can fight this enemy. We can locate the source and destroy it. It's not that simple, Sarah said, calling up new data on the display. Look at your response patterns over the past 3 years. Every time you've tried to attack a plague zone directly, you've followed standard military doctrine. Organized formations, logical approach vectors, coordinated strikes. She highlighted several failed military operations, showing how each one had been anticipated and countered. Your enemy knows how you think. They've studied galactic military tactics, scientific methods, and diplomatic protocols. Every response you've attempted has been predicted and neutralized. Dr. Phineas looked up from his data pad, his large eyes wide with understanding. They know us too well. Our logical approaches, our honorable conduct, our scientific methodology, all of it has been turned against us. Exactly, Sarah nodded. But they don't know humans. We've been quarantined for 50 years. There's no recent data on how we solve problems or conduct warfare. More importantly, we don't follow the same patterns you do. She moved to a different section of the display, showing the terraforming network's control architecture. Your people tried to shut down individual nodes in the network, right? Surgical strikes against specific installations? Thylex confirmed this. Yes. We identified key network hubs and attempted to sever their connections to prevent further spread. And each time the network adapted, rerouting around the damaged sections, Sarah said. That's because you were being predictable. You were trying to minimize collateral damage, preserve valuable infrastructure, follow rules of engagement. Commander. Zeleth's scales darkened as he began to understand. What are you proposing, human? Sarah's smile was sharp and dangerous. I'm proposing we stop playing by their rules. Instead of trying to shut down the network gradually, we overload it all at once. We turn the terraforming system's own power against itself. The aliens stared at her in horror. Dr. Phineas was the first to voice their concerns. Captain Chen, what you are suggesting would require simultaneously activating terraforming protocols. Across hundreds of worlds, the energy feedback could destroy entire star systems. Not could, Sarah corrected. Will. That's the point. We create a cascade failure, that burns out the entire network in one massive surge. Yes, it will destroy a lot of abandoned infrastructure. Yes, it will probably sterilize some uninhabited worlds. But it will also sever the plague's connection to its source. Thylex's crystalline form flickered with distress. The risk is enormous. If your calculations are incorrect, we could cause more destruction than the plague itself. If my calculations are correct, Sarah replied calmly, we save the galaxy. If they're wrong, we lose some empty worlds and old equipment. Given that the alternative is the complete extinction of galactic civilization, I'd say it's a risk worth taking. The debate that followed was intense, but brief. Time was running out, and conventional approaches had already failed. Finally, with great reluctance, the Cooperative Council authorized Sarah's plan. Working around the clock, human engineers collaborated with alien scientists to modify existing technology for their desperate gambit. The plan required precise timing. They would need to activate terraforming protocols on over 300 worlds simultaneously, creating a feedback loop that would overload the entire network. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Harmony, watching as countdown timers reached 0 across multiple displays. Around her, representatives of 7 different species held their breath, hoping that the unpredictable humans had found a solution where logic and honor had failed. Initiate Cascade Protocol, Sarah ordered. Across the galaxy, ancient terraforming installations that had lain dormant for centuries suddenly roared to life. The energy surge was visible even from interstellar distances, as hundreds of worlds briefly glowed like small suns. Then, in a chain reaction that traveled faster than light through subspace, the entire network collapsed. The effect on the void plague was immediate and dramatic. The expanding zones of nothingness suddenly stopped, growing. Then, as the terraforming network burned itself out, the plague zones began to contract, matter reasserting itself as the artificial field effects failed. Within hours, it was over. The void plague, which had threatened to consume the entire galaxy, was gone. In its wake, the scattered pieces of an ancient artificial intelligence were found floating in the debris of destroyed terraforming stations, the remnant of a long-dead civilization that had tried to reclaim the galaxy by destroying all current life. Ambassador Thylex turned to Captain Sarah Chen, his crystalline form glowing with admiration and something that might have been respect. Your solution violated every principle of civilized warfare and scientific methodology. Sarah shrugged, a very human gesture that somehow conveyed both humility and confidence. Sometimes you have to break the rules to save what matters. That's what humans do best. We find ways to win when winning seems impossible. Commander Zeleth stepped forward, extending one massive arm in what Sarah recognized as a gesture of respect among his people. The quarantine of your species was based on fear of your unpredictability. Today, that unpredictability saved us all. Dr. Phineas was already compiling reports, his scholar's mind fascinated by the implications. We must study human problem-solving methods. Your approach to complex challenges could revolutionize our understanding of crisis management. Sarah looked around at the aliens who had once deemed humanity too dangerous for civilized space. Maybe it's time to reconsider that quarantine. The galaxy is a big place, and there are probably more impossible problems out there that need solving. As the Harmony set course for Nexus Station to report their success, Sarah Chen reflected on what they had accomplished. Humanity had been isolated for 50 years, branded as too chaotic and unpredictable for galactic society. But when civilization itself was threatened, those same qualities had proved to be exactly what was needed. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes, the most dangerous problems require the most dangerous solutions, and sometimes the species you fear the most is the one you need to call when all hope seems lost. In the end, humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their courage, but their willingness to think differently, to break rules when rules weren't working, and to embrace chaos when order had failed. It was a lesson the galaxy would not soon forget.